Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara Beck, host of Welcome Home, where we love telling life-changing stories that offer us hope and inspire us in our walk with Jesus Christ. Well, when we produce Welcome Home, we're always on the lookout for new stories that we can make into a special program that simply spotlights someone's journey, that just tells the story. And today's life-changing story is simply that. We're going to take a glimpse into how God truly fashions His custom-made plan for each of our lives. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's life-changing story. So glad that you joined us today, viewers. One of my favorite people on the whole planet is here with us today, and you are going to be so excited to hear a little bit about his journey. He's been here before, and he's back again. Pat Williams, who is a co-founder for the Orlando Magic and also vice president. And Pat, we are just so honored to have you here with us today.
Great to see you, Barb. Always a treat to be invited, and I'm sure we'll have a good chat as always.
Absolutely. That couch, by the way, has your name on it. Anytime you want to come, you know you can come. Well, the only time it seems like you want to come is when you've written another book, but then that's like 104 times. Number 104?
104 it is, Barb. It's called The Success Intersection. I'm often asked, do you have a secret of success, or is there a thought about success? And I'd say yes, there is. In my opinion, when you figure out what your best talent is and where that intersects with your best passion, your greatest passion, that, I believe, is your sweet spot in life.
Yes.
And that's where you want to get educated.
Right.
That's where you want to live. That's where you want to work. That's where you want to get paid every 2 weeks.
Sure.
Right there in that sweet spot. So that's the meat of this book. And I hope young people particularly will get a hold of it and think, you know, this is going to make me think about what is my best talent.
Well, and the book is replete with examples of people who have not really understood that intersection, where their talents don't meet their passion. And sometimes, you know this, Pat, that we get stuck on that little hamster wheel, that we're going round and round and round, and we're not doing the job that we love to do, but it's bringing in the bread so what do we do when we find ourselves in that kind of position?
Well, it's a tough position, Barb, and I hear from a lot of those people around the country, and they say, or they send me a resume, and they say to me, I love basketball, always have, and I want to work for the Orlando Magic. And I'll talk to them, and I will say, well, sir, how old are you? And, well, I'm 48. And I said, and what are you doing now? He said, well, I'm a lawyer. And I say, could you give me a rough idea of the money you're making? I said, is it 200 plus? And he'll say, yeah, it is. I said, so you would be willing to come to Orlando, try and apply for a job in the group sales department for about $25,000 to begin with? Oh, no, I could never do that. No, I said, well, sir, those are the facts.
Yeah.
So let's talk for a minute about the facts. I said, why don't you just keep doing what you're doing? How many children? He said, well, we got 3. I said, well, you got big education bills, but why don't you coach a youth basketball team on the weekends?
Great advice.
Or why don't you work and put together an AAU team in the summertime and help coach it and get your basketball kicks that way? I said, I think that would probably be a little more practical than resigning at age 48 and scrambling around trying to get into the NBA at introductory dollars.
Exactly.
I said, it makes no sense.
Right. Good
Well, I do
mentorship.
too. Thanks for explaining all that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people just have misdirected views. But that's why it's important, Barb, for young people in school, young as possible, to really figure out what they're good at.
Yeah.
And that's where adults come in, because most times youngsters don't know what they're good at, really. You haven't thought about it. But when a teacher or a coach says, Bobby, you are really, really good at leadership. You know, I see terrific results out here. The way you lead these young men, or Mary, I love the way you write. I love grading your papers. Look forward to it. They're well crafted. Your wording is interesting. You know, you really have a future, I believe, as a writer. Mary probably had never thought of that.
Right.
But she will now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why mentors are so important in our life. I know you have personally given great advice to my number 2 daughter, who kind of thought the same thing about, you know, maybe I want to work for the Orlando Magic. Maybe that's a place for me. You talked her out of it. You may not know this, but when you write your books, you are mentoring people, because they are very informative, they're educational, but they're also inspiring in a lot of ways. When I read your books, I start thinking I can do anything and I can be anything I want to be. I really do think that you've mentored hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people through your writing. Have you thought about that?
Well, I don't. Well, I guess when we're doing them, Barb, I should be thinking about that. That will they take this information? Will they find it to be of value? And that's probably one of the reasons we write each book.
Yeah.
You know, it's got a little different slant, different theme, different ideas behind it, but they're all designed to give people encouragement,
Right.
hope,
Yes.
challenge them to live at a higher level, because we're all able to live at a higher level. We really are.
Right.
And that is very fulfilling. We don't want to sit back. And that, by the way, Barb, leads to another little side point here on this issue of talent. Many people have it. However, the great ones never stop working at it. Whether you're a golfer or a violinist or in any field,
Right.
the great ones, you know, never stop working at it.
Speaking of great ones, God has placed across your path many, many incredible people that you've visited with and interviewed and have influenced your life. Vince Lombardi being one, John Wooden being another. You reference these superstars in your book and some of the lessons that they've taught you along the way. Can you remember, or can you recount any of the pearls of wisdom that either one of these gentlemen have given you that have made your life richer as a result of having met them and visited with them?
Well, let's talk about Coach Wooden.
You have a whole book on Coach Wooden.
I do.
Yes, which I've loved. What did he teach you?
Well, one day we took him to dinner, early dinner, about 5 o'clock, and we're sitting there in the restaurant. Hadn't gotten crowded yet. And I leaned over and I said, Coach, you've been on this earth a long time. I said, have you discovered one secret of success above others? And he thought for a minute. He always spoke very deliberately. And he said, the closest I could come to one secret of success would be a lot of little things done well. Now, that's all he said. He didn't go off, and he was very judicious with his words. He didn't go off and give a 5-minute sermon on it, but he just simply said, a lot of little things done well. And I was in the process of working on another Wooden book, and I called the publisher immediately, and I said, I think we've got a new title for this book. And she agreed, and the title became Coach Wooden's Greatest Secret.
A lot of little things.
That was, then there was a subtitle. But Coach Wooden's Greatest Secret. And for a 90, at that time, I guess he's in his early 90s, for a 92-year-old man to reveal his greatest secret,
Right.
I think had a little intrigue to it.
That's one of my favorite books that you've written. I've loved learning about John Wooden.
And there's one more coming, Barb.
Oh, good.
We've just turned the manuscript in. It'll be out Feb 1 of next year.
On what?
It's called Coach Wooden's Forgotten Teams.
Oh.
And for many, many summers, he directed and coached his own camp in California. There would be, I guess, 3 sessions. He probably had, well over 1,000 kids a summer.
Wow.
Multiply that for 18 years. Thousands of kids.
Yeah.
And they would come, and Coach Wooden was always very much involved. The public had no awareness of this. All they knew was the Coach Wooden coaching his great teams in the wintertime. So we dug into this book and dug into the whole process and found out through coaches that worked out there with him and players, youngsters who went to the camps. I mean, we really did a lot of digging and scratching.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
And came up with some wonderful insights into this man.
Yeah.
Wonderful material. We're
Stories, lots of stories.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And people's remembrance and youngsters remembering when he would, the minute he would show on the stage, there was instant silence, you know, as he arrived for
He
the
commanded respect.
first session of the morning. They didn't have to be told. They were,
Right.
and so anyway, we've had a nice time. The book is in, turned it in. His daughter, Nan, did the foreword for us, which we were thrilled about. She wrote the foreword about her father, so that's going to be a good read for people.
That's going to be sweet. Well, if you remember to send it to me, send it to me.
Oh,
when
yes.
it's out. I would love to read it. You know
Coach
that.
Wooden's Forgotten
Good.
Teams.
Okay. Pat, you have accomplished so much in your lifetime. It would be hard to even talk about all that you've done in your life, the different jobs, the different things that you've done, the different people that you've influenced. But according to you, Pat Williams, superstar in my book, what's the best thing that you've done with your life?
Well, the most important thing, Barb, that happened in my life was at age 27, when I was running the Phillies minor league ball club in Spartanburg, South Carolina, having great success, but inwardly really struggling and frustrated about, is this all there really is to this life? And in that mindset, I was presented with the claims of Christ. I was introduced by a number of people to this God-man, Jesus. And I never really had considered him, never had thought about what he might mean in my life. But I was at the right time in my life. And I responded. And I made the decision that I wanted to become a follower. And I invited him to come in. Well, the good news is you better be ready when you make that decision, because he will come in.
That's right.
And he came in my life very dynamically and very powerfully and in an overwhelming manner. And that was, well, I was 27. That's exactly 50 years ago. So that was a real turning point.
Yes.
He got a hold of me, and I learned that he can take you into amazing places. And he's done that. When you think about the steps that I've made and the moves I've made, I didn't know about any of them. You know, from Spartanburg into the basketball, and from Philadelphia to Chicago, Chicago to Atlanta, Atlanta back to Philly years back. I did not know anything about them, and they happened. And so, and then the big one, Philadelphia to Orlando.
Yeah, that was huge.
31 years ago.
Has it been 31 years?
Yeah, that was huge, Barb.
Wow.
And Jesus knew all about him.
That's right.
But I didn't.
That's right.
But I could see where he was taking me in my life. This whole issue of writing books, you know, I never viewed myself as a writer. My high school English teacher would be absolutely stunned, rolling over in his grave. Mr. Oviatt, who thought I was a borderline dunce, you know, he would absolutely be shocked But God, as it turns out,
Right.
gave me skills that I
right.
wasn't even aware of. And above all, the desire and the application to figure it out and go get them done.
Is that one of your biggest passions then? Is it the writing? Is it the speaking? Is it managing people? Is it relationships? What is the favorite thing that you do?
Well, Barb, I've got probably about 5 major areas in my life. One is my family, Ruth, 19 children,
Right.
17 grandkids. You know, that's definitely a passion.
Right.
The Orlando Magic remain a passion. You know, I was privileged to be part of the launching, the founding of the team. And
Right.
that means a lot more, I think, as the years go on.
Yeah, it's huge.
Then my speaking life continues around the country, and I have opportunities to speak into the corporate world.
Like,
so that,
like every week almost, or every
well,
other.
I'm traveling somewhere
Right?
usually every week.
That's amazing.
So that's that remains a priority. And then the books, and the books and the speaking interlock, I think.
Yeah, right.
But more importantly, there are more ideas that keep coming, and I'm often saying, Lord, wait a minute, there's going to be, I thought there was a point, you know, where this would all end.
Right.
But then another idea pops.
Yeah.
And right now we've got 3 new books in the pipeline
You just never quit, do you?
that'll be out next year
You're amazing.
and the year beyond.
Right.
And new ones keep
Yeah.
popping into my mind.
Right.
And then you've got to find a publisher who's interested. But so the book world never really changes. So that's my life. I mean, that's what I stay close to. I'm not a golfer. I'm not a fisherman. I'm not a stamp collector.
This is your joy,
Yeah.
writing and speaking.
And the other major issue of my life is reading.
Yes.
I'm a bookaholic. I read constantly in different areas.
Nonfiction, too.
Yeah, I don't read
Right.
fiction.
Right. You were telling me, is it one book a week that you were challenging everybody to read, or one book a month?
Well, I challenge them. One book a week. You can
Yeah.
do it. Got to turn the TV set
That's
off.
52 books a year.
Except for channel 45.
Well, yeah, you leave that on in the background while
Yeah.
you're reading. Yes.
Yeah. But if you'll read a book a week, you'll finish 52 of them in a year.
Yeah, yeah. And how much more interesting a person would we become? How much closer to Christ would we grow? How much more successful would we be in intersecting our passions with our talents? And I mean, I love reading. I am a bookaholic as well.
Good.
But you continue to encourage me to never stop reading. So,
Yes.
again, you are one of my mentors. I don't know if you know that or not, but you truly are.
Well, there's never a time when you're there as a reader. And
Never,
Once
never.
you become a reader, it can become very frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm in my man cave at home. There are probably about 800 books
Wow.
that I'm behind on.
Wow. That you want to read.
Oh, yes.
What do you do with your books when you finish reading them?
Well, that's an interesting process. They get boxed up.
Yeah.
First Baptist Orlando, our church, has agreed to have a Pat Williams library.
Wow.
They're about sitting in boxes down there now.
That's great.
Or about 18,000 books
Wow.
of mine
Wow.
that have been collected over
Yeah.
these many, many years. And, the house just couldn't handle it anymore. It had to do something about it.
Well, I don't understand, Pat, when people hoard books, when they keep books. And I have a lot of books, and my husband does not like to give books away. And I box up my books and I give them away, because what good does it do? Once I've already read a book, sorry, it's got my name in it, you signed it, but it's going to be passed on to somebody else so that they can glean from it. Not everybody can afford to buy a hardback book, but everybody needs to be reading. So I'm a great believer in passing books
good
along.
for you.
Big believer in
Well,
that.
I like this. I'm excited about this library
Me
idea.
too. That is great.
Along with it would go,
Were they all your books, or are they books
they're
that?
all books of mine.
Okay, they're your books.
By category, there's
Okay.
a huge segment of baseball history.
Yeah.
Huge segment of football history. Huge segment of leadership. Another big section on success. We've got massive numbers of books under the heading of Christian inspiration, Civil War period, presidential biographies, areas that I read in are of interest to me. A Revolutionary War period.
So you're a historian. You love all history.
I'm a history guy.
Right.
And a sports.
I know you're a sports guy.
Football, basketball, and baseball primarily.
You're amazing.
And so I keep at it. And reading for your life, Barbara, really is important. Keeps that your brain sharp.
Absolutely.
You know, they say to keep active and do crossword puzzles and this, that, and the other. But I would say to help to ward off.
Dementia. Alzheimer's. Well, it's funny you would say that, because the last time I interviewed you, I don't know if you remember this or not, I was asking you about, there were 12 steps in this book, and I said, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to name every single one of them. Just name one or two. I don't know if you remember, but you went through every single one of them. No notes. You didn't know ahead of time I was going to ask you that question. You have a mind still like a steel trap. And that's from doing all of these things through the years and disciplining our minds to continue to grow.
Yeah, our minds need exercise.
They do. They do.
Our brain is a muscle, like any other muscle, and you've got to make it work. And the best way I know is to attach a book to it.
Absolutely.
And that's going to push your brain to really work and take it all in. And life becomes a lot more interesting, Barb.
Yes.
If you're knowledgeable.
Yes, absolutely.
About what's going on.
Right.
You appreciate life a lot more if you're smart.
Yes. Right. Informed.
If you're informed, if you're on the ball.
You mentioned, because we're almost out of time, but I want you to talk about people in your life who are dream stompers. What do we do with those? First, explain what that means, and then what do we do with that?
Well, I would call them, Barb, well poisoners. Or dream stoppers. You know, they see you going for something, and they say, you'll never do that.
Right.
Or what makes you think you could possibly do that? You know? Well, they don't have any dreams and goals, and they don't want anybody else to either.
Exactly.
But you want to be around life enhancers. I think that's the best word.
Right.
Who, when you have some goals and dreams, they're saying, go for it.
Absolutely.
Boy, that's exciting. And you know what? I believe you can do it.
Absolutely.
So really go for it, and I'll be here cheering for you. You
know, I've talked to so many people recently in interviews where they've had parents tell them that they're no good and they're never going to amount to anything, and life is, you know, just why even. So those people are overcomers, and Jesus can do something about that and can cure and heal those people, Pat. But we've got to surround ourselves by mentors, by people who believe in us and that have those same kind of dreams.
One of the books that's on my checklist is called, just simply the word, Empowerment. And Jimmy Hewitt, perfect example of that. Jimmy was the key businessman who brought me down here in 31 years ago, and to help start the Magic. And from the moment I got here, Jimmy would say to anybody, we're going to get this franchise because Pat Williams is going to be down here to do it.
Right.
And the other cities don't have a Pat Williams, but we do, and that's why we're going to get this team. Jimmy was
relentless,
just telling the world that.
And you kind of believed him too, right?
How could I not?
Exactly.
And 31 years later, when I see Jimmy, he still says it.
That's great.
You know, the reason Bubba, he calls everybody Bubba, said the reason we got this team, Bubs, is that you came down here and you did it. And then along comes the new owner, Rich DeVos. He's the same way, Barb.
Yeah.
And you'll run into Rich. He's now, 91 years old and in a wheelchair. But he'll forever say, now here's Pat Williams, who came to see me one day up in Michigan and asked if I'd put the money up to buy a baseball team for him, and I agreed to do that. Didn't get it, but that led to basketball, and that's why we're all here in Orlando.
Praise God for that.
And Pat Williams is the reason, and that's how Rich talks to you.
Yeah.
So I'm simply saying, those men certainly knew how to empower me.
And speak life into us. And speaking of life, you are doing great. I know you're in remission with multiple myeloma.
That's right.
But you're doing great, right?
I am. Dr.
Praise
Reynolds
God.
is pleased with me, Barb.
Good, good. Well, you keep at it, okay? We're totally out of time here. I could talk to you for 4 hours and not feel like we'd even scratch the surface. Viewers, there are so many wonderful stories in The Success Intersection by Pat Williams. What happens when your talent meets your passion? You want to live a life of significance, of success, and there's some great tools. So go to that website that's up on your screen for you right now to get more information about the book. And Pat Williams, you know how much I love you. What
Thank
a
you, Barb.
superstar you are. Thank you so much for being here with us today. God bless you.
Happy to be here. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Stay with us, viewers, and we'll be right back with more. I hope you were touched by our life-changing story today. We always see God's hand at work mightily in these incredible faith stories, these stories of hope in Christ. You know, there are times when we don't understand what God is doing in our lives or the lives of those we know and love. But here's the encouragement today. God is sovereign. Isaiah 55:8 clearly explains, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." I can't tell you how many times I've had to bank on those words. Words from God reminding me that I don't have to understand everything, but I do have to grab hold of the truth that God's got this. In every situation, He is holding our hands and walking us through the good times and the bad, the dark days and the bright. Well, thanks so much for watching today's life-changing story, and we pray that you will continue to find comfort and hope in Christ. God bless you.